this is life on life's terms. You're not going to get it perfect, and I'm not even trying to. It's about creating what sort of life do you want to have and what sort of person do you want to be based within the constraints that you've got. And sometimes it's like, for today, I'll just do a little bit better. And if it doesn't work out, well, I'll try again tomorrow. And that's just life, one little day at a time.
Hello, I'm Dr Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. It's wonderful to have your company. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited today to introduce my guest, Warwick Merry. Warwick is an event host. He specialises in online and hybrid events. He is a colleague of mine through Professional Speakers Australia, and he is an all-round awesome person. Merry by name, merry by nature. That's how we see him now, but it hasn't always been like that. So, Warwick, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm truly been looking forward to this, and I'm looking forward to having a chat and see where it goes.
Yes, see where it goes. It's so Warwick, you've had your own podcast, so you're very familiar with this media.
Yes, indeed. I do love the sound of my own voice.
Isn't that the same for all speakers?
Some do, some don't, and you just go with it anyway. It's funny. It's so funny with speakers, and I know we're talking about anxiety. And I was thinking before coming here, it's like, one of my most comfortable spots is on stage in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people. I love it. It's not a problem. But put me in a one-on-one conversation, and I am so uncomfortable at times. And I think because I can hide on stage. It's weird, I know, because you're the single person in front of so many people, but there's a persona or a presence that you can inhabit that just helps you sort of hide your inner fears, etc. But when you're that one-on-one, there's that level of intimacy that's a bit, so yeah, it's very interesting what speakers hide. So whether they all love their own voices or not, I know for a fact there are some who don't, and I know for a fact there are some speakers who have been told to change their voice, and it wasn't until they had their courage to go, no, this is me, that they've really blossomed.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? When, like I have an anxiety disorder, and I talk about anxiety, it's my passion, and yet I don't. I mean, I get the regular sort of nerves before getting on stage and speaking to an audience, but it ignites me and it lifts me, and I get really excited. It's more excitement than nerves, but of course, when anything's meaningful, anything that's important, is requiring us to step up, then it's natural, isn't it, to feel that. But yeah, it's an unusual one because simple things that other people would do without thinking twice about can really sort of trigger my anxiety. And, whereas the things that would trigger most people's anxiety, like speaking in public, it's quite different, isn't it? It's an interesting one.
It's funny. There's that joke about, look, at any funeral, the person giving the eulogy, everyone in the audience would prefer to be, I think it's something like 70% of the audience would prefer to be in the coffin versus having to give the eulogy. That's just how scared of speaking in public people are.
Yeah, it's right up there, isn't it? It's right up there. So thanks again. Also, this is essentially a one-on-one in that it's just you and me for now. But I really do appreciate you jumping behind the mic and talking with me. And I love your humour. I just the way that you are in front of an audience. I've been in an audience with you, with the spotlight on you many times, and it's always a joy. But it's not always been, you haven't always sort of felt the same way that you appear to feel in public. Is that a reasonable way to put it?
Look, that's a very fair comment. And I think in my experience in talking with people, how people project and look and how they actually feel are two different things. And I know for me, I've had to do a lot of work to take off masks. And it was so hard because I go, okay, I've got to get rid of this mask and find, now I've got another one underneath. Because, and we were joking beforehand, my surname being Merry, and, so I am this merry person wherever I go. And I don't know whether the name has helped shape me to be the jovial person or whether it's sort of something that I've lived up to. I don't know whether the name made the man or the man made the name or whatever happened to it. But for me, I've always been, what's the word? A nutritional overachiever. And some others would call that overweight. And so I was the fat, funny guy. So, you know how just stereotypically there's the fat, funny guy. And so it was a good defense for me. And so on the inside, I was felt very isolated and very alone. And looking back at a lot of some of my childhood photos and looking at some of my memories, a little bit painful because I remember the phase that I was going through then. Yet to the outside world, I felt like, people go, "Oh, he was always happy. He's always joking around." And it's taken a lot to use that humor not as a massive defense brick wall to keep people away, but just as something that adds value to an audience, but knowing when to be me, if that makes sense. Um, and which is probably why the one-on-one conversations I'm less of a fan of, because you've got to be me. I can't be the, "Hey, how you going, blah blah blah," because people will be like, "Bye bye now, that's too much for me." So it is about being that authentic and just understanding that there's many times when the negative voice, "Oh mate, the imposter syndrome lives in my head." And I've had many conversations about it. I've done a lot of work around it, and it's still there. And I hate social media. Like, I just hate it because, and as a small business owner, I'm on it a lot because I use it as a tool to promote my business. But I see other speakers, and you see them go, "Oh, here I am. I'm in the Bahamas, and I'm speaking here, and look at this stage, isn't it?" Da, 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 da. And half the time, you don't know. Like, they might not be paid for being there. There's opportunities. Sometimes people pay to be there, and you'll often see people with, "Oh, here I am with Arnold Schwarzenegger." And it's common knowledge that, yeah, oh, you want come to a gig and have a photo with him, and it costs you like $500 or whatever. So there's a lot of falsehoods that I see, but I compare my insides to other people's outsides, and there is no winning at that. And so it's been really important for me to just play my own race. And I'm of an age now. Oh, by the way, as a speaker, I'll keep talking. So interrupt me if you want to ask a
I
question.
will.
I'll keep
I
going.
will. I will.
So I'm of an age now where I'm considering what's retirement going to look like for me. And I'm not one of these people who goes, "Oh, I'll never retire. I'll work and forever and da 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 da." Because my understanding, and particularly for men, is that we get a lot of our identification through our work. And once we no longer have our work, not because we choose to stop working, but because all of a sudden we get to an age or a point where no one wants an 80-year-old consultant. So all of a sudden we don't know who we are. And so it's like, okay, well, I want to look at what sort of life do I want to build for that retirement? And in that lead up to it, what do I need to do to sort of get there? And how's that? And things have really shifted for me. Like, I remember when as a graduate, I was like, I want to be the CEO. I want to run the place. And then the more I learn, the more I'm like, I would not want to do that for all the money in the world. Like, I just not, people are impressed with, Elon Musk and Jim Bezos, what's his name? Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon and stuff, because they got so much money and they're doing all this stuff. I'm like, they come across as very inhumane to me. And I'm like, I'm more of a connector. And
Yes.
and there is something wonderful about admitting your anxieties and talking to close friends about it. Doesn't mean you go on Facebook and go, "I'm really scared of," but it's, just chatting to your friends and being vulnerable. And that's how you find out that often they feel the same way. And you're not the weirdo you think you are. You're just a normal human being. And yeah, there is something about like having those kind of conversations and confronting it.
There really is, and it seems to me, and this is anecdotal in terms of what I'm seeing on LinkedIn and Instagram, and they're typically where I sort of spend a bit of time if I am on social media or on a platform. Is that people are in my mind more comfortable coming out and talking about what they've experienced. I was on LinkedIn earlier today, and his name's going to escape me, but there's an SBS a journalist who'd been there for 34 years, and he'd done a post about having left. Well, I'm not sure the circumstances under which he left, but I suspect that it wasn't his choice. And he talked about how dark things became for him because of how he identified with his work, how he identified so strongly with that when that was no longer a part of his life and identity, that he became very down, very depressed, and was in a really dark place. But through being able to speak with friends and family and having an outpouring of support, of course, publicly, because of 34 years in front of a camera's connected him with a wide audience, that really lifted him and buoyed him. And it plays into the idea that we don't like having negative emotions. We call them negative, and I'm doing air quotes because podcasting is such a visual medium. The idea that we want to feel good. We want to feel good. I think we're really sort of, in our culture, we generally aren't raised to experience the spectrum of emotions. And yet when we don't feel good, when we can tune into how we feel in a moment, when it might be frustrated or disappointed or let down, that they're messages for us, aren't they? And also when we express that, we can garner the support of people around us. If we don't share how we're feeling, we don't get the support that we need.
Yeah, very much so. And it's so funny when you're talking about, air quotes, negative emotions. Often they're not negative, they're uncomfortable. That's all they are.
Mm,
They're just like emotions that we haven't felt before. But here's the other thing. I know with the work that I've done that I'm not looking to be happy all the time. I
mm,
talk to people about, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or what do you know? I just want to be happy. And it's like,
mm,
I don't. I'd love to be content because I
mm,
don't think you can run at this. I'm happy. I'm a happy little person. Here am I. I'm happy. Like with every up comes a down, but with contentment, there's that inner feeling of serenity and you get to
mm,
enjoy the burst of happiness. And there's something wonderful about being sad as well. Like I'm affectionately referred to in our household as the big girl's blouse because whenever we watch films, I'm a mess. Like, and it can be typically it's animated films and they're kids' films or they're,
mm.
the dog's going to die or something. And there's tears coming down. And, my wife turns over and goes, "You okay?" I'm like, "Oh, it's okay. I'm just a bit sad." She's like, "Oh, big girl's blouse." And it's a term of affection. Please, no need to
Yeah.
get too upset. The term of affection. Um, and but there is something wonderful about that. There is something. It's like I never get that upset about my own life, but I can look at other people's and get upset for them. It's really weird.
Yes.
Um, but there is something joyous about being able to celebrate that. I know, but there is
Mm,
something. My wife and I, we're very fortunate. We have a 75 acres rural retreat that we go to,
yeah.
and now that we've been let out of lockdown, we go to, and
Yes.
there is something wonderful about just sitting there in nature and just being. And
Mm,
I while I have my phone, it's not on me. I don't have to check in anywhere. I can just be, and that's been such a wonderful thing to relieve myself of any expectations I have of myself, let alone others. Um, and to just be, I love that saying of be where your hands are. So just that being
mm,
present and enjoying what's out there. And as because of who I am, we look for humor in stuff and everything that we do. My wife has a fairly full-on job working in the mental health industry. And they say that the people who work there have some of the darkest sense of humor because, you have to. Like if you
mm.
can't, it's a very powerful mechanism for dealing with things. So we will often look for the funny side. And that whole concept of, "Ooh, too soon," like it just doesn't exist for me. Like there's like anything that happens, I'm straight away like, how can we make this a bit funny?
Yeah.
Which some people don't understand, but that's okay. So yeah, there is this whole concept of, you've just got to be happy. It's like, I'm more focused on contentment. There is something powerful about that word contentment, and it took me a while to come around to it because I was one of the ones like, well, I just want to be happy, and I just want to, because somehow I thought that would fix everything if I was just happy, and it's just
Mm,
like, well, no, there is a place. You can't have the ups without the downs, and sometimes bad stuff happens and negative things just happen and it's gonna hurt and it's gonna put you through this roller coaster of emotions. The quickest way around is through. I know when I'd left my first wife, I spent 2 weeks. I went. My mum and dad lived about an hour and a half up the road, so I went with them, and I just said, "Look, I need to sit in this." And I wrote, like, I did that whole ink what you think. Just write stuff down. It gets it out of your head and onto the paper. And I just wrote. I wrote so much, and it was very stream of consciousness, whatever, get it out. But what it meant was, while during those sort of 2 weeks I was with mum and dad, more so in that first week, I was able to process how I was feeling, what I was thinking, who I was blaming, what has caused it, what am I doing next? Oh my God, what's the world going to happen? Um,
Mm,
and it just helped me actually get through it versus shoving
mm,
it down, going, I'll deal with this later,
mm.
because it would have held me back a lot. And now, it divorce and separation is messy on so many levels, but being able to process it gave me freedom to be able to move forward and create something new, which
Yes.
is what I ended up choosing to do. And it was very powerful for me, because there was, like, we ran our own business and stuff. So it wasn't just leaving the marriage. I was leaving the marriage, the business, the house, the dogs, like everything. And that was a
Yes.
very tough call. But it was an absolute gift. And it, I grew in ways I had never expected that I would. And it came through that whole, um, being willing to face whatever was going on.
Mm.
And look, there's a lot of my friends said, "Mate, you waited 3, 4, 5 years too long to leave." And
Yeah.
yeah, but I wasn't ready. I couldn't. I wanted it to work. And then I got to the point where I, like, look, I need to, um, I had to get out one way or another, and the other option was not something I could do. And so it was like, all right, well, I need to leave. And it was messy,
Yes.
but it was the most generous thing I've ever done for myself.
Yes. And a very, very difficult decision, and driven by probably a long held gut feeling that things aren't right,
Mm,
and that this is not. And like you say, you tried very, very hard to make it right, to make it work, because turning around and, I named the podcast, well, Hello Anxiety. And, in my mind, it's like, sort of, instead of running, excuse me, instead of running from it and running away from those sorts of feelings, if we can build the courage and the willingness, it's not easy. Oh, I'm going to need a drink of water in a minute. If we can build that courage and that willingness to stop running and to turn around, because there's that power over us when we're running from things, but when we can stop and turn around and face whatever challenge it is, no matter how high that mountain looks, it's the best way forward. Like you said before, that, the only way around is through. That, there's we innately try to avoid not feeling good, whereas we lose sight of the fact that when we have this willingness to say, I feel shit, or I feel depressed, or I feel down, or I feel I'm not happy, and have that willingness, like you said, when you went to your parents, to sit with it and to experience it, then you no longer it's like pushing that beach ball under the water, isn't it? And holding it, and the longer you hold it, the more tired your arms get, the harder it is. And it's got to pop up sooner or later. It's going to happen.
yeah.
It's a far healthier approach, but it's often the harder road, isn't it, to turn
Oh,
around and make that choice and
very much
face
so.
what's coming. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's look, and one of the things that I found was that I was trying to get rid of the anxiety or get rid of these things, and there is no getting rid of. And it wasn't until I accepted it and just said, you know what, I have levels of anxiety around stuff, and that's okay. That's just how it is, and that's not good nor bad. It just is. And
Mm.
sometimes anxiety is good. I did a one man play in the Melbourne Fringe Festival a few years ago about Gough Whitlam. And so I
Oh.
played the role of Gough Whitlam, long may we say, God save the Queen. Anyway, so I got to tell you, it was fun. And look, there was 6 shows, sellout crowds every night. And they were sellout because it was 28 people maximum in this small little theatre. But I got to tell you, I've been on stages with thousands of people, and I have never been so nervous as I was stepping out in front of 28 people.
Yes.
Backstage was about the size of a walk-in wardrobe. It really was tiny. And I'm there. My legs are nearly failing because I'm just so nervous. But what
Yes.
I'd been doing, this anxiety of, like, God, it's a one-person show. It is a monologue for 50 minutes. And for me, I can talk. That's not a problem. But it's a scripted talk. That was the problem. How do I remember
Mm.
the chunks? And, we set up a couple of safety mechanisms. So if I forgot where I was, I could scratch the back of my ear and the producer would kill the lights to give me 2 seconds to work out where I was and then come back on. Right? That was the
Yes.
plan, right? And I used that a couple of times in the first two performances, and after that, I was fine.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just that anxiety helped me do more practice, do more rehearsal. I'd walk the dog for an hour because I could, and I would say the script out loud as I'm walking around. So sometimes anxiety is good, and I think we forget that. We're so focused on,
Mm.
oh my god, I'm so anxious, it's so negative, and it's like, and there are some good elements about it. So it's about how do I how do I use this for purposes of good and not evil? How do I acknowledge the good side and say, okay, well, sometimes I suffer a bit, and I've got to have ways to deal with that. And
Mm.
having pre-planned tools has always been helpful. So and I know even to this day, I have some days I wake up and I'm just like, the world can just go stuff itself. I'm not interested. And I know that, okay, well, if that's the case, then I need a physical change. And by that, I mean, rather than just sitting at my desk like I always do, I need to go for a walk, or I need to put on
Mm.
some loud Foo Fighters music or AC/DC or something that's going to help me shift, or I need to call a friend and ask, how are you? Because I found that one of the best ways for me to feel better is to forget my stuff and talk to others about them and their stuff. And all of a
Mm.
sudden, I'm not as important to the world as what I thought I was, and I can just move on, and it passes. And
Yes.
so, but in the moment, I will not think of those things. In the moment, I'm like, and so it's good for me to have this strategy well beforehand, so I know here are three or four or five things that I need to do. In the same way that sometimes I think I'm hungry, and I need to remember going. I always check, have a glass of water first, see what that does, because often it's like I'm not hungry because I know my senses are confused for a whole variety of reasons. And often I'm thirsty, going, oh shit, I haven't drunk anything all day. Maybe I'm just thirsty, so I'll have a big glass of water versus a bar of chocolate. So it is having these strategies that pre-planned, saying, okay, I know this works for me. So if I needed to, I don't know. At one stage, I had a couple of things just written on a little list in my wallet. So if I felt like crap, I could, because I couldn't trust my own brain. So I just get them out of the wallet and go, right, I need to call other people, or I need to go for a walk, or I need to put on some music and go for a walk, whatever it is. So
Yes.
these kind of strategies in advance really, really help, because when I'm in the thick of it, I can't trust myself.
Mm. And for good reason. And it's because the part of the brain that helps us, the higher order thinking that comes from the part of the brain that's behind the forehead, the prefrontal cortex, when we're highly anxious, it's not available to us. It goes offline or out to lunch. And it's because we don't have time for a committee meeting of the mind to make a decision about what to do when our brain thinks our life is in danger. And what you've just said and what you've instinctively developed as a plan for yourself, the science behind it is backs every step every step of the way with your strategy, in that you you practice, or you know ahead of time, what it is that works for you. You've noted it down in a couple of places so that you can have something to refer to when you can't rely on being able to sort of problem solve in the moment. And a huge part of what you said is you need to go for a walk or put on some music, or phone a friend. I don't know what phone a friend. What is it? What was that from? What game show
Isn't
was
that
that from?
like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Who
That
wants to? That's
50-50
it.
phone a friend, blah, blah, blah.
Phone a friend. One of the huge takeaways that any and all of us can put into place is this idea of we've got to get out of our head and into our body. And it's something when I'm talking to groups of parents or staff, because you would know as a speaker, you really want to have these really sticky ideas that people can walk away with. And this is one of my really sticky ideas, is the idea of when we're distressed, whether it's anxiety or anger or terrible disappointment, overwhelming, devastating disappointment or heartbreak, anything like that. This idea of getting out of our head and into our body. And that's through our senses. So you put on music, or you move your body, or you have a conversation. And for some people it is a mug of hot chocolate, or it is a something that's comforting to eat, as long as that strategy doesn't then become the issue itself. Because as we know, as you as a nutritional overachiever, as you described yourself, that it's natural to want to comfort ourselves. And so and chocolate does help us release serotonin and the like. So there are, and gosh, I mean, I stopped eating eating family-sized blocks of Cadbury Dairy Milk when I remember when Hunter, our son, was little. I remember going to the milk bar and buying it and quickly shoving it into my handbag so he wouldn't see because he was old enough. And that was a real pivotal moment because I'm like, this is a long time ago. This is not a good coping strategy. And when he's like, what's that? Because he saw that purple wrapper, that
Yeah.
very telltale purple wrapper. And I sort of said, oh, nothing. I realized, no. This is, anyway, at that stage, I hadn't yet quite developed the skills that I've got now and didn't have the understanding that I have now. I was still really in the thick of, just drowning in it all, I suppose. So, yeah, it's brilliant that you've shared that, and the notion that we can shift, and it's not about shifting to a point where we're trying to make ourselves happy. It's just about helping the emotion move through us, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so, and very interesting how you've said how it's good that I was able to work out these strategies, by myself. No, did not work them out by myself. Other people told me. It's really interesting. I remember as a kid, I just sort of thought, you're born perfect and go from there, and that's probably true. Like, when you're in the hospital, you're born perfect, and then it's all downhill because there's influence from others who may or may not know, and what works, what doesn't. And I think one of the gifts for me has been willing to go to therapy, and I've had many, many therapists, and I had one most recently who just wanted me to use apps to meditate, and she couldn't hear me say meditation does not work for me, because if I'm
Mm.
sitting there, my brain goes, and when my brain goes, it's not good, which is I need the music or the walking or the something to, and I've taken up, I do a bit of woodworking and epoxy work and handy stuff, and hours can go, and I just can't remember what I was thinking because I'm very present when I'm doing that kind of stuff, and
Yes.
that's sort of my moving meditation. Sitting there
Yes.
listening to an app and the winds blow doesn't work, and
Yeah.
that's okay because everyone's different. But I was in self-help groups for many years, just looking at how do I grow as a person? How do I absorb some of this higher knowledge so that I can use this thing called my body better. So how do I, there was no instruction manual where it's like, well, when you're feeling a bit funny, go to page 27 and this is what you do, and parents will do the best that they can, but sometimes it's not enough. You might have you are different to that. I grew up in a small country town, and I didn't drink and I didn't play sport. My parents
Mm.
had no idea what to do, and I had, there was I was of the understanding I had a weight issue. They had no idea what to do.
Mm.
And I was very out there as a personality. And I remember in the 80s, I would wear like really bright, vividly colored Lycra shorts as I'm doing the sport that my parents were making me play. And my dad could not cope with that. Could
No.
not cope. And he was a very serious man, who once he retired, chilled out and was just a delight to hang out with. But at the time, I don't like that TV show MASH. He would just bag MASH all the time. And then when he retired, it was his favorite show. It was hilarious. Because, people grow, people's circumstances change. He must have been feeling the pressure of, I've got to raise, I'm on a farm that doesn't make much money. I've got to have a second job. I'm raising 3 kids. I've got to do this, and this. So that's got to put a pressure on a person versus I'm now
Mm.
retired. I'm living in Queensland in the fishing resort with my boat. How good is life?
Yes.
And so, there are circumstances that aid the stress and the anxiety. And so looking for, well, how do I deal with it? How do I let go of the stuff I don't really want to, but know that it's in my best interest to do so? And sometimes that's friendships. Like sometimes there's people in your life you're just like, you know what? I just got to say I'm sorry, but I can't see you anymore. And I had when I was in between wives, I had a girlfriend, and she's a lovely woman, but it just worked out that it just wasn't for me. So we broke up. But I tried to do that let's still be friends thing,
Yes.
and it just didn't work for me, and it was causing me a lot of stress and anxiety and whatever. And then I met my Sam, my current wife, and when my final wife, no more, we're done, we're sold. She's the best, and she
Mm.
knew all about my friend, and I'd catch up with my friend every now and again, and I just like I've got to, I can't do. I tried to do the drift away, don't contact them, and just hopefully it'll dissolve. Well, that didn't work, so I had to man up and have a phone call well, because it's too chicken to go face to face, and just say, look, I'm terribly sorry, but this is it. And it was really hard, and it was really freeing, and it was a real, and, this is the whole thing of like, the hard things give you the most value, and it's, and I didn't just do it right. I'm going to burn them. It was like I had a conversation with my wife, had a conversation with a couple of friends, and just to make sure, is this the best decision for me? What impact will it have on them? Because I suspected it would hurt. It wouldn't harm them, but it would hurt them. And so it's just like, how do I do this as nicely as possible? And I did the best I could. I don't know if it was the best thing, but it's sometimes doing that, and and sometimes that's family members, because that was, I know with my family, I was going through a bit of stuff, and I said, look, I need to just step away, so I'm probably not going to call for a little while, but I just need some space. Yeah, that didn't go down too well, but it worked out well for me, and it helped me have a much healthier perspective on my family. And as
Yes.
as my direct family members have gotten older and grown in their own ways, I'm now closer to my brother than I ever was. He's the kind of guy that I would cross the street to avoid, right, when I was a kid. And
Yes.
we were just, he was I was the antithesis of him, in terms of he was the beer drinking, sports playing, country town thug, right? And
Non-fluorescent lycra
oh
wearing.
man, flannels only, thanks. And and it's just, and over time we've both grown, we've both done development, we've both, and now, we talk to each other every couple of weeks, and just check in with what's going on, and provide counsel where needed, and it's great, So it's amazing the changes and shifts that happen when you work on it, and it is that I know for a while, a lot of my stuff, I'm like, well, if I ignore it long enough, it'll just go away. But actually going, okay, I've got a problem. Well, maybe not a problem, but there's something that I'm not enjoying, and I need to look at what's the best way to address that. And I love the concept of the 3 A's, which is that awareness, acceptance, and action. So being aware
Mm,
of the issue you've got, and then being okay with it, and just going, it's not good or bad, it just is. And now, what action can I take to address this? And as I said, like before, with the anxiety, it's like, I don't want to get rid of it, but I want to at least be able to live comfortably with it, and sort of go, oh, that's my anxiety acting up. You'll be okay, mate. Just sit back, relax. I got this. We're good. And
yes.
just be able to live with it, not sort of going, go away, be gone, because then they're like, ooh,
Yes.
I'm getting attention, I will stay here even more. So it's just, it's that whole
Yes.
managing kind of stuff. And yeah, there's a lot to be said for growing, and not just saying yes to new things, but saying no to old things as well, because it's very
Yes.
helpful.
It really is. And the what you've touched on there, or dived into, is that
Dove,
correct?
let dove, doved,
Dove,
lived, what we
doved,
got into.
dived, got into the idea, because like you say, the anxiety, so much that, so many pearls of wisdom. I'll start with the latter and then go to the former. The latter, the idea that you can, I talk about anxiety sometimes has to come along for the ride, but you're in the driver's seat, and it's a passenger. Stick anxiety in the boot if you have to, but the more we try to push the anxiety away, the bigger it gets. It's like, because the brain's like, oh, this really is a threat. Oh, this is a threat. Oh, this is something to worry about. Oh, whereas, as awful as it feels, when we understand how it makes us feel and how it affects our thinking and our physiology, the shakiness, the tension that builds in our muscles, and the digestion, and all of the different ways that anxiety affects the way we feel. If we have a good understanding of that, and we can go, all right, it's only anxiety. It's only anxiety. That's what my therapist used to say to me and I would be like, what are you talking about? It's only anxiety. Excuse me. Have you, and he had a lifetime of living with anxiety. And of course, therapists never share much about themselves. But over the years of spending time with him, he did share more, and he would say it's only anxiety, and I get that now. I understand that. And sort of going back to what you said in the lead up to that was the idea that, when we have a challenge, because it feels uncomfortable, we don't like feeling uncomfortable, we'll avoid and it'll bubble along. And we know it's taking up precious mental, it's that mental load, isn't it?
Mm,
It's that
yeah.
I need to have a hard conversation. And, like you, I've been in a situation that became increasingly uncomfortable and not no longer aligned with my values with a friendship. And I talked a lot to other friends about how to handle it, and in the end, it fizzled, and that was a fizzle on both sides, which was comfortable. But there are other times when it's the right thing to do, isn't it? Not just for us, so that it puts a full stop on a situation that needs a full stop, but it's the harder thing, but I think it's the respectful and the right thing to do for the other person.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I know someone at the moment who's in a fizzle situation that's really feeling quite ticked off that nobody's put a full stop, and it's not this person's place to do that. It's
Mhm.
the other person's place to do that. And there becomes the resentment can build, and the curiosity and the questions, and then the what did I do, and all of that kind of searching. Whereas if the party that needs to put the stop sign there to say, look, this has come to a sort of a natural end for me,
Mm.
it's the right thing to do, but it's really, really tough. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's it's something that's not really. I know, I sort of think as a child that wasn't something that was role modeled for me. And we've got two children, one at the moment, 11 and 13 at the moment, and one of our children needed to do that with a friendship, and we encouraged that it was done face to face, or because it was lockdown, it was done over not a Zoom, but a what is it called, Facebook.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, FaceTime or,
FaceTime. Oh,
yeah.
goodness, thank you. And that was the harder road, because it's so much easier to send a text, but but that was what we wanted to instill as parents, this idea that yes, it's hard, but it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And you move past it more quickly, other than letting it sort of bubble along, and then it's always in the background, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
very much so. Look, and as Western society, we have successfully avoided these hard confrontations so much that I learnt in university the management principle of the Peter principle, which is
I've
someone is
heard of
so
this.
useless as their job that you promote them and then you transfer them out of your area. So this is what's happened, and it happens all over. You will not name an organization where this has not happened. Like, it happens so much where someone is just crap at their job, but the manager is too, I don't want to say gutless, underskilled. There we go. They're underskilled
Mm,
in being able to work with them to get rid of them, or to help them change their behaviors, their approach, whatever it is, that they go, you know what, it's just easy to let's just transfer them sideways. And it's called the Peter principle.
mm,
Like, if you look at the Peter principle in management, they'll talk about how you just promote the useless ones. And it's insane. But it's what we do. Getting back to what we are talking before about how you've got to live with the anxiety. There's this whole, and anyone who's listening will know the kind of self-development stuff I do, because I'm throwing out these one-liners that I've just learned at them all the time. What you resist persists, right? And so this
mm,
whole concept of, like, I'm resisting the anxiety. I'm a person of love, and I just figured, look, if I can love my anxiety and say thank you for the wonderful things it's done for me, for helping me be organized, for helping me, be better prepared for things to go wrong when I'm on stage, then all of a sudden it becomes part of me, and I'd sort of, it's a good thing. And so I think that that whole looking for ways to love the thing you hate is always hard, but it is a great way of just existing with it. And I think that for some of these issues like anxiety, you'll never get rid of it, but what'll happen is it plays a lesser role in your life. It's still there, and you can say
mm.
hello to it and let it know you still love it, because it's still doing a few little things for you. But you can just sort of live
Yes.
with it a bit better. And I think that's really worked for me, because I'm more of a lover than a fighter, and that's just worked. And so that's one of the approaches that I really like around that.
Yes. It's there's so much wisdom. There's so much wisdom. Whoever you're working with has obviously, really, really supported you to think differently about it. And whilst there might be people listening going, never gonna love it. That's okay. That's okay. You don't have to, but you've really brought us to the idea that it is protective, it's adaptive. And in episode four, I interviewed the amazing Karen Young. And Karen's written a book called Hey Warrior. And it's a beautifully illustrated book that depicts a little boy and his amygdala, which is the part of the brain that detects threat. And the amygdala is always sort of, and again, the visual medium of podcasting, pushing the little boy sort of behind him, like, I've got this, I'm in front, I'll protect you. And the story goes that the little boy learns that, yes, thank you for being my protector, but I don't need you all the time. I don't need you all the time. And about learning that without anxiety, we wouldn't have survived as a species. We absolutely wouldn't have. It's what helps keep us safe. And so we need to recognize when the anxiety's bubbling up. Well, is this an invitation to retreat and stay safe? Is this something that is life threatening to me or going to threaten my safety? Or is this an invitation to recognize what it's trying to protect me from, but knowing that I can say, yes, thank you, but I'm okay here and I'm going to take a step forward. And it's such a hard, it's a learning curve. It's a learning curve. And it's that willingness for all of us, no matter how far along we are in our journey of understanding it, or for parents listening who have young children, is to help them to lose that idea that it's something horrible and ghastly, that it's there. The anxiety response is always trying to keep you safe. So
Mm.
let's see it for what it is and work out, is this, and anything that's meaningful, anything that's big, any new job interview, exam, presentation, you know, podcast, I'm comfortable now, but I wasn't. Anything new that we do, the brain's going to say, well, you could be embarrassed, you could fail, you could say or do the wrong thing. This could go really pear-shaped.
Yeah.
And so it's trying to protect us, and it's that recognition, isn't it, of when to go back and when to go forward. And if you're going to go forward, you don't have to dive off the deep end. You can take sort of small steps in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
direction.
And look, we all learn coping strategies. Some are healthy, some aren't. And as we grow,
Mm,
we're like, that coping strategy doesn't serve me anymore. Eating a
mm,
block of chocolate a day probably doesn't serve me anymore. There's got to be a healthier, bigger picture way. And, sometimes this is, PTSD stuff, stuff has happened. So you come up with ways that your body's trying to help you, and you've got to try and learn a new way. And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's really hard. And I've got to tell you,
yeah.
I didn't go from I hate my anxiety to, oh, I love my anxiety. You're the best thing. Like, there's that process of, like, I used to hate it. Then I'm like, okay, well, now I don't hate it. I don't like it, but I just don't hate it, and then there's like a little
Yes.
bit neutral. It's like sometimes it's done okay. And then I'm just getting to the point of that whole I love the concept that there is no good or bad. It just is.
Mm,
And
mm,
things have happened for different reasons, and it's um and it's just looking at, well, how can I better deal with this? How can I deal with this sort of stuff? Some stuff may be unfortunate, may be painful, maybe whatever, but giving it a
mhm,
moral assessment it doesn't serve me.
mm.
And I'm talking, run of the mill everyday kind of stuff. I'm not talking
Yes.
someone's doing something brutal to you. Um,
Yes.
but it is just, look, how do you move forward? How do I've been diagnosed recently with a couple of conditions, and they're,
Mm.
not ones you get better from. They're not fatal. They're just, it's a
Yeah.
medical condition, and everyone's got something. And as I've been saying to my wife is I don't want to be defined by it. It's like,
Mm.
I've got it. It's part of who I am, and I've got to, make a few adjustments for it. But I don't want it to define me. And I think that's a fair thing, where the physical condition, albeit a mental health condition, is just like, okay, so, I get quite anxious at times, but I don't want to let that define me. So how can I live with it in a way that's going to work for me? Um,
Yes.
and not try and disguise it and hide it and just go, yeah, look, hey, I get anxiety, so it means I leave really early from parties. I'm the last one there and the first one to leave. And it's like, but at least I went. I'm now
Yes.
going to parties. I'm not sitting at home going, see, why didn't you go to the party? You should have gone to the party. You probably would have had a good time. So because to me, it's the negative mental self-talk that has caused me the most damage. So to be able to move past that has been, and it's still there. Like I never get rid of it. Like, man, I have these memories flash up from primary school and high school. Oh, I should have said this or I should have done that. And it's just like, man, I'm 53 now. That was a very long time ago. Can you let it go and learn
Yes.
from it and do something a little bit different? But this is life on life's terms. You're not going to get it perfect, and I'm not even trying to.
Mm.
And it's really interesting when you read some of the behind the scenes stories of these amazing people that everyone thinks are just legends. It's like there's some messy bits there. And so it's about creating what sort of life do you want to have and what sort of person do you want to be based within the constraints that you've got. And sometimes
Yes.
it's like, for today, I'll just do a little bit better. And if it doesn't work out,
Yes.
well, I'll try again tomorrow. And that's just
Yes.
that's just life, one little day at a time.
It is. And, the notion, I long ago, my therapist gave me, well, suggested I read the book, The Road Less Traveled. I don't know if you've
Mm.
read The Road
Yeah,
Less
yeah, very
Traveled.
much so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the opening sentence is, life is difficult. He was trying to, and successfully help me. I had this notion that we're meant to be happy all the time, and that when things weren't good, there's something wrong. I've got to fix this because this is not what it's meant to be like. And that acceptance, what you were talking about earlier, the idea that it is what it is. And that things do happen. It's human for us to have all sorts of things happen in our life. And I remember too, at the time that I was experiencing a lot of health anxiety. And if I had to have a minor procedure or something, that it was, to me, my catastrophic thinking was really unhelpful. But
Mm.
just this notion, and as a parent and as a professional, trying to really help sort of share that insight that there are, there's only so much that's in our control. There's a lot that is outside of our control. And when something has happened, it's happened. There's no amount of reflecting or rethinking, or that, hindsight's a beautiful thing, but we need to focus our attention on what is in our realm of control. And also this pervasive idea that that something's not, when we're not happy, there must be something wrong. We're actually not meant to be happy all the time. And that,
Mm.
like you said earlier, the idea of even the good emotions are fleeting. Even the joy is fleeting. I had a great chat on the 89.9 Light FM last week. Oh, it was maybe the week before. Goodness, time's going fast. And I was part of their mental health hour for Mental Health Month. And I had this, it was the most beautiful experience to chat to Lucy and Cal, and then to take listener questions, and to really make a difference for people. And I was on such a high, and I so enjoyed it. But that settles down. That doesn't last forever. No matter whether it's that end of the spectrum, or it's the deep disappointment or hurt, or they do pass. They do pass, and they pass more quickly the more willing we are to experience how we feel.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
one of the things I wanted to sort of bring us back to, which is what you were saying before about, at the start of our conversation, you were starting to, you touched on the idea that you are starting to think about retirement, and about sort of making a conscious effort to develop your identity outside of your work. And of course you do have of course you do, but it's just where we place that focus, because retirement and moving outside of the workplace and living beyond work is a very stressful, anxiety provoking time in people's lives. So it's one of the most stressful times in people's lives. Funnily enough, it seems like it would be quite the opposite. And I guess it depends on the work that you've done.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
can you talk us through
Yeah,
what
sure.
what are you doing to help ease yourself into that transition? And you're obviously keeping top of mind the idea that this could be an issue for me, and so you're starting to deal with it in advance.
Yeah, look, I think a friend of mine was talking about a Beyond Blue thing that they went to, and Jeff Kennett was speaking at it and said one of the biggest causes of death in Australia is the R word, retirement, and particularly for men. And because their identity is so attached to their jobs that once they retire, they're at home, and their wife's like, "Oh, you're here all the time. Oh, you keep hassling me. Oh, you're telling me how I'm doing things wrong all the time." Because, men, that's what we do. And all of a sudden, there's this change in the marriage relationship, and there's change in other stuff because they've done nothing outside of work because you've got to work 14 hours a day, and then you come home and you watch your telly and you go back and do more work and blah, blah, blah.
Mm,
And so for many, many years, I've been a huge fan of having a hobby. And I
mm.
think somewhere where you can turn off from the rest of the world and have your hobby. So I've sung in choirs for the last 10, 15 years. And 15 years. And so I sing in two choirs, which is great, and for me, and I've said to my musical director of one of my choirs, I said, look, just so you know, should you leave this choir, I'm coming too. And, and so, and now I'm starting to develop a skill in making some just very rough bits of furniture and using epoxy and upcycled wood and all this sort of stuff.
Yes.
And it is something that it gives me enjoyment outside of it. And I've got to tell you, the pieces that I've made, they're a bit rough, but they're good enough. And it's just like, I'm an
Yeah.
amateur. I don't, I'm not a fine furniture maker. Detail's never been my thing. But for me, it's that, okay, well, this is a fun thing to do. And so it's that whole, what are you going to do when you retire? Because there's something
Mm,
about, working for yourself. The hustle, the constant hustle is just exhausting. And I don't know about you, but over the last couple of years, particularly in COVID, it feels like it's even more so
mm.
because you've had to flex and adapt. And what the joke in our household is be agile and pivot in a flexible manner, and just do all this sort of stuff to try and, just keep bringing money in the door and do it differently and have to embrace new technologies and have to buy a whole lot more cameras and all this other crap that you got to do
Mm.
and still keep everybody happy and keep paying your mortgage and keep doing your other stuff. And so for us, it's just like, okay, what are we going to do? And international travel was always a big thing, but I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in international travel at the moment. I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to in Australia, we're managing our COVID relatively well. Some countries, not so much.
Mm.
Africa's only got about, my understanding, don't hold me to this, about a 10% vax rate, so they're in
Right.
a lot of trouble. And so it's like, well, and some parts of Asia aren't doing too well. So it's like, I don't know, I want to take the risk. I'm all about
Mm.
risk mitigation. So therefore it's okay, well, what do I want to do? And also part of that is like, well, we need to look at financially, what are the investments we need to make? How do we set this up? Because when I did a couple of degrees at uni, one of them was accounting, and I was taught at the time that by the time our class was ready to retire, there will be no pension for us. And so therefore I was never, because there's not enough, with the baby boomers and there's not enough workers to pay the tax needed to give a meaningful pension. And so therefore,
Yes.
if you get one, it's not going to be much. And so we've been doing some heavy investing outside superannuation and outsides to make sure that, we never have to ask. My parents had to ask the question, can we afford to retire? And
Yes.
I never want to ask that. So, but you don't just go, 60 and then go, oh, maybe we should retire soon, because it takes 10, 15, 20, 30 years to get to that point.
Mm.
So it is a conversation we've been having, but also in terms of, well, what are we going to do? Because I'm a big believer in community and contribution. So I still, hence, us meeting at Professional Speakers Australia in that, because I've been president, chapter president, and I've done a lot of stuff there because I believe in contribution. Because yes, it's nice for everyone else, but it's really good for me too. I feel
Yes.
better about it, and I grow because I'm asked to do stuff I would never usually be asked to do. And so it's in the giving we receive kind of thing. And so
Mm.
I would still want some form of community. And so, yeah, it's just visualizing what that's going to be. Our rural property, a lot of people are like, oh, you can go and live up there. And I'm like, yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff that I like to do here, but we could live up there 2 or 3 days a week. maybe even 4, or maybe a couple of weeks at a time, and then come back, so it is just that, and it's really hard. I don't want to obsess about what retirement's going to be like because I need to live in the now. So it's that whole learn from the past, plan for the present, learn from the past, plan for the future, but live in the present.
Yes.
And knowing that, whatever plans you've got, things are going to be different and it's going to change last minute and something will come out of nowhere and you go, oh, let's do that. So,
Yes.
because, both my wife and I got aging parents that we, to help and support and do whatever we need to do and to make sure they've got as much independence as possible, but have the support they need. So and this is life. This is no different than anybody else. We've all, maybe some people don't have parents. Maybe some people got parents that live until they're very, very old and need a lot of support. There's a whole
Yes.
range of stuff. But there's barely a challenge that we face that someone else hasn't faced before us. So the more I talk about it with others, the more support, or at the very least ideas, that I'll get. I very long time ago made the decision that it's a lot easier to learn from the mistakes of others, so I don't have to make them all myself.
Yes.
Yes. But I won't find out about them unless I talk with people, and this is the thing. So having conversations helps.
It does. And having relationships where you can be open and people are comfortable to talk about what they stuffed up or what they did wrong, what they do differently, and for you to be a trusted person that they can tell that to, and for you to share as well. And it speaks to the idea that relationships are just so incredibly important for our mental health and our well-being. And
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you've gosh, we've been on the most incredible journey over this past nearly an hour, and you've shared so much of your wisdom and so much of your life and your heart. And it's just been such a pleasure to learn from you and to hear how you've applied what you've learned in your life and the difference that it's making, and the idea that you're creating space to have an awareness of what it is you're going to need and I think that that's a real big takeaway for people, is that whether it's planning for the future in terms of, planning for the future in the immediate future versus the long-term future and retirement, that it really pays to be able to take a bit of a step back and have a think, rather than just flying by the seat of our pants and dealing with things as we stumble upon them. Because when we're better equipped and we've learned from the mistakes of others and we've been able to really think about what we need and what's going to serve us well, it can make such a difference to the outcome, can't it?
Very much so. Big picture perspective is one of the most useful tools that I reckon I've come across. Because when you're in it, you're like, oh my God, this is tragic and things will be bad. But when you can look back and just go, this is just one of the things. And you talk to, it's nearly every astronaut who's been into space and looked at the world as a globe has come back passionate about the environment. Because all of a sudden they see the political boundaries don't exist. They're an optical illusion we put in our head just to be there. And we are one. And that you only get that from big picture. You only get that when you look back and you go, it's just today. I'm going to live till I'm about 70. This is just today, the stuff that I'm facing. Come the end of the day, I'll go to sleep and everything will be fine or better or marginally better. So sometimes stepping back is so healthy. And then you can step forward again into the now and address the situation with a healthier perspective that this isn't everything. And sometimes what you think is a massive problem is just a blip. But the healthy perspective just really helps.
It does. Getting out of it and looking at it, zooming out. That's a whole nother conversation. But we've really that's been sort of a thread throughout our whole conversation today, and being able to apply what you've learned. And I really am so grateful to you, Warwick. It's just, it's been such a joy. And I reached out to you when I was in a bit of a pickle, if you remember, and you just I was in a real professional pickle. Not an expression I've used before, but I reached out to you for some advice on the advice of a mutual lovely friend of ours, Peter Merritt. And I am so thankful that I did that. I was anxious to reach out because I didn't know you well, my call was received with such warmth and kindness and empathy and wisdom. The wisdom that you shared was just incredible, and I'm very grateful to you for that time and for today as well. It's just been such a pleasure. So thanks again. Thanks again very
Absolute pleasure.
much.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's been great.
Oh, thanks. And we'll so check out the show notes. Check out the show notes for where you can learn more about Warwick. Warwick's just an amazing human, and he's just brilliant at what he does professionally in the online event space and as a speaker and a consultant. He's pretty extraordinary human. So yeah, check him out. Check out the show notes. And thanks again for your company. Thanks so much for joining me. And I'll see you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.